My name is Harriet Mercer, and I was 67 the night my daughter slid a pen across her dining room table and called it love. She didn't say sign here. She said, "It just protects you, Mom." She said it the way you'd offer someone a sweater. I set my late husband's navy accordion folder on the table next to my plate and folded my hands on top of it. I didn't open it. Not yet. They thought the worst thing on that table was going to be my answer. It wasn't. The worst thing was already done 3 weeks earlier down at the county recorder's office. A recorded document with my name on it in a signature I never once wrote in my life. Stay with me, because the folder was the polite part of that evening. Welcome to Brave Mom Stories, where the women everybody decided were finished turn out to be the only ones in the room who can read. If a quiet voice and a paper trail sound like justice to you, you're in the right place. Stick around to the end, leave a comment, and hit subscribe. Some of you are going to recognize your own kitchen table in this. The invitation came as a text on a Wednesday. Sunday dinner, Mom, 5:30. We want to talk about getting things in order for you. My daughter doesn't text in full sentences when she's relaxed. She texts in full sentences when there's an agenda. Getting things in order is the kind of phrase people use when they've already decided the order and just need you to hold still for it. I should tell you what I do, because the rest won't make sense otherwise. 40 years in title and escrow. I have read more deeds than most lawyers, closed more files than I can count, sat across from more nervous buyers and slick sellers than I can remember. I know what a quit claim looks like and what it costs you. I know what a deed of trust does the second it's recorded. People my age get treated like we've handed in our brains along with our office keys. And I have learned to let them think that. It's the cheapest advantage in the world. That same week, a thin envelope had landed in my mailbox from a title company I didn't use anymore. I almost tossed it. Instead, I slid it into my husband's old folder, the navy one with the elastic band gone soft, and I brought it to dinner without quite admitting to myself why. I drove the 18 minutes out to their development. New construction, the kind with a fountain at the entrance and 3 model names for the same house. My daughter's SUV was in the driveway, freshly washed. Behind it, my son-in-law's truck, the big one, lease, the one he traded up every 2 years like clockwork. And beside that, a sedan I knew. My son-in-law's mother. A Sunday family dinner with his mother driven in special, and my own son's car nowhere in sight. I sat for a second with the engine ticking and counted what I could see from the curb. A bass boat under a cover along the side of the house. 2 vehicles that cost more than I made in a good year. A wreath on the door in October. Carefully arranged. Whatever this was, somebody had built it, and I was the only one pulling up who hadn't seen the blueprints. Inside, it smelled like a candle pretending to be an apple pie. The kitchen was all gray quartz and brushed nickel, an island the size of a parking space. My granddaughter, 4 years old, all knees and questions. I'll call her my little Wren because that's what her daddy nicknamed her, came barreling at my legs, and for a second, the whole thing felt normal. My daughter peeled her off me, smiling. "Mom, sit, you must be tired from the drive." I'm not tired. I drove 18 minutes, but I let it go. My son-in-law's mother was already at the table, hands folded, beaming like she'd been promised something. "Harriet," she said, "you look so well. We were just saying how nice it'll be to simplify your life." Simplify. There it was, the first word out of the gate, soft and helpful and pointed straight at my house. On the refrigerator, under a magnet from a pizza place, was a glossy little slip half-tucked behind a school art project. I read it the way I read everything, sideways and without moving my head. Cedar Hollow Senior Living. Deposit received. Studio. Memory care wing. Move-in target. Spring. A deposit. Memory care. Spring. I was 67 and balancing 3 clients' files in my head while I read it. Memory care. My daughter saw me reading and reached past me to straighten the art project over it. Casual as anything. "She made that at preschool," she said. "Isn't it sweet?" It was sweet. The slip behind it was not. We sat. There was a roast, a good one, the kind you buy when you want the table to argue your case for you before you've said a word. My son-in-law talked about a job his crew had landed, big custom kitchen, big number, and I noticed he said the number twice. Men who actually have money say it once, if at all. My daughter kept refilling wine that nobody had finished. My little Wren got down to play, and the room got quieter without her. My son-in-law set down his fork and squared up the way men do when they've practiced something in the truck on the way over. "Harriet, we've been doing a lot of thinking about your situation." "My situation? Your house. Your estate," he said. Estate like it embarrassed him. "We talked to a guy. With everything going on with long-term care these days, if anything ever happened to you, the state can come after the house." Medicaid recovery. It's brutal. People lose everything to a nursing home. "That happens," I agreed, "because it does. So the smart move," he went on, leaning in, warm now, "is you put the house in a family trust. Add us on the deed, so it passes clean, no probate, no court, no lawyers eating it up. It protects you." And honestly, Mom, he'd started calling me Mom around year 3 of the marriage, and he only reached for it when he wanted something. It takes the whole burden off you. You shouldn't be worrying about property taxes and a furnace at your age. You've earned the chance to slow down. Slow down. I have read title chains that would put a paralegal in the hospital. But sure, slow down. My son-in-law's mother dabbed her mouth. "In our family," she said, "we sign things over. My mother put her house in my brother's name the day she turned 70. It's how families take care of each other. It's an honor, really." "Was it?" I said. "Not a question." She didn't catch that. My daughter put her hand over mine. "I just want you safe, Mom. I don't want you alone in that big old house if you have a fall. Cedar Hollow has a place that's so nice. It's like a hotel, and if the house is handled the right way, we could even use it to." She stopped herself, "to make sure your care is covered. Forever." There was the shape of it. The frame they'd built and stood me inside of. The stubborn old widow rattling around a house too big for her, refusing the loving children who only want her safe, who only want to simplify. All I had to do was sign, and I'd be the good kind of mother, the kind who makes it easy on everyone. I felt the pull of that frame. I want to be honest with you. Nobody wants to be the difficult one at her own daughter's table. That fear is real, and it had its hand on the back of my neck the whole meal. But I'd read the slip on the fridge, and the envelope in my folder wasn't routine, and I knew it, and I wasn't going to learn the rest of it in a room where everyone was watching my face. "Let me think on it," I said. "You know me. I don't sign what I haven't read twice. Give me a week." The relief came off them like heat off a sidewalk. My son-in-law grinned and refilled my wine like we'd closed a deal. His mother announced she'd known I'd be sensible. My daughter squeezed my hand, and her eyes went a little wet, and I would have believed those tears completely if I hadn't just read the word "spring" off a slip behind a preschool drawing. I told them I'd think about it. I didn't tell them I'd already started. Let me tell you who I am, so the rest lands the way it should. I married at 23. My husband was a good man and a sick one for the last 9 years of his life. Heart, then kidneys, then everything at once. I nursed him at home as long as I could and worked the whole time because somebody had to keep the lights on and the deductible paid. There were months I moved money between 3 accounts like a shell game, so the kids never knew how thin it was. I never told them we were drowning. They didn't need to carry it. That's the version of motherhood I believed in. You eat the worry so your children can eat dinner. When he passed, the house was the one thing we owned free and clear, because I had thrown every spare dollar at that mortgage for 30 years and killed it the month I turned 60. That house is not a sentimental object to me. It is the proof that I survived him. It is the only thing standing between me and depending on anyone. And here is the part I'd half forgotten. During the worst stretch of his illness, when I was signing things at a hospital at 2 in the morning, I'd had a lawyer draw up a durable power of attorney, so that if I went down too, somebody could handle our affairs. I'd named my daughter. It made sense at the time. She lived close. She was steady then. That paper got signed in a fluorescent hallway 11 years ago and filed away, and I had not thought about it once since. I thought about it that night, driving home with the folder on the passenger seat. At home, I did exactly what they asked. I reviewed everything. I cleared my own kitchen table, same table where I'd done that shell game in the dark years ago, and I opened my laptop and started building. For me, that's what worrying looks like. I make columns. Columns don't flatter you and they don't cry. First column, their money. And I had more of it than they thought I did, because a few years back, when their first refinance got tight, they'd asked me to look over their numbers and I'd kept the file. People forget what you keep. Combined, they cleared real money, more than I ever saw. Then the other side of the ledger. The leased truck, $800 a month. The base boat, a payment and a slip fee, a lake place they timeshared. Private preschool for a 4-year-old, because of course. A country club initiation they'd financed. The business limping, sure. Custom cabinetry is brutal when interest rates climb, but limping isn't drowning. I sat back and looked at it. They didn't have a protect mom problem. They had a payments problem they didn't want to touch. Drop the boat, drop the club, downshift the truck, and the cash flow breathed again. They could fix their lives. They just preferred to fix them with my house. I made a note in the margin and started a second column. Some of you are doing this exact math at your own table tonight. The favor that's really a transfer. The it protects you that protects everyone but you. If you've ever been turned into the family's emergency fund and handed a pen, type I see it down in the comments and subscribe, because the rest of this is for you. The pressure didn't wait a week. By Tuesday, my daughter was texting me articles. Mom, did you know the average nursing home is $9,000 a month? This is why we have to plan. A link. A crying face emoji. By Thursday, it was a photo of Cedar Hollow's model studio, sunlight, a fake plant, a recliner. Doesn't this look peaceful? Then my cousin called. Honey, are you doing all right? Your daughter posted the sweetest thing. Said she's just trying to keep her stubborn mama safe, and some people won't let themselves be loved. My cousin laughed nervously. She didn't name you, but she didn't have to. That's the trick. You don't accuse anybody. You set the stage and let the audience cast the villain, and the only role left open is mine. I didn't answer any of it. Silence is a complete sentence, and at my age, I've stopped wasting words on people who've already written my lines for me. Friday night, my son called. My son, who lives 2 hours out, who works with his hands and doesn't gossip, and whom his sister has always treated like furniture. Mom, he said, and right away I could hear he was somewhere private, maybe the garage. Did Sis talk to you about the house thing? She did. He was quiet a beat too long. I need to tell you something. But I don't have all of it. I was at their place a couple weeks back, dropping off the trailer. The office door was open. My brother-in-law was on the phone and he didn't know I was in the hall. Another pause. He said something that's been sitting in my gut ever since. Say it. I only caught pieces. I keep telling myself I heard it wrong. But Mom, don't sign anything, whatever they put in front of you. Don't sign it, and don't let anybody else sign it for you either. His voice cracked on that last part. Just promise me. I won't sign tonight, I said, and I won't sign anything I haven't earned the right to understand. After he hung up, I sat with that one phrase. Don't let anybody else sign it for you either. He didn't even know why he'd said it that way. But I did. My stomach knew before my head caught up. I pulled my own bank statements. Not theirs. Mine. 11 years a widow. Frugal as a church mouse, I read my own accounts every month, and I'd have sworn I knew them cold. But I read them again, line by line, slow, the way you reread a contract when something itches and won't quit. And there it was, a standing transfer out of my savings. The first of every month. $1,900. No name on it, just an internal transfer code and a reference number. $1,900 a month, leaving an account that was supposed to be mine alone. I checked the dates. It had started 11 months back. I sat very still and did the arithmetic I didn't want to do. 11 months, $20,000 in change, gone out of my safety net in dribs, a number small enough that I, careful me, had folded it into the market or fees, or the thousand quiet ways money seems to evaporate when you're not staring straight at it. Somebody had been moving my own money for nearly a year. And only one person on this earth had the legal key to my accounts, the durable power of attorney. 11 years old, never revoked. Signed in a hospital hallway at 2 a.m. by a woman who thought she was protecting her family. I drew a box around that transfer and labeled it in pencil. And then I did the thing I do better than anyone they'll ever underestimate. The next morning I drove to the county recorder's office, The building I've walked into 1,000 times, and I pulled the record on my own property. There was a new document recorded against my house, a deed of trust, a lien, dated 9 weeks ago. Securing a line of credit I had never applied for, never been told about, drawn against the equity in the home I killed myself to pay off. And the signature on it was mine. Looped, careful, almost right. Signed by and through her attorney, in fact. My daughter's name beneath it, exercising that 11-year-old power of attorney like a key she'd found in a drawer and decided was hers. They hadn't asked me to sign over my house at that dinner. They'd already borrowed against it. Quietly, months ago, using a paper I'd signed for my husband's deathbed and forgotten. The Sunday dinner, the trust, the it protects you. That was the cleanup. Get me to sign a fresh deed willingly, papering over what they'd already done, so that if it ever came to light, it would look like Mom's idea all along. The whole loving ambush existed to make the forgery legal after the fact. I stood at that counter with the printout in my steady hands. I made sure they were steady. Steady hands help you think. And I understood the shape of all of it. The $1,900 a month was the line of credit's payment, draining my own savings to service a loan against my own house, taken out in my own forged name to keep my son-in-law's business breathing. The Cedar Hollow deposit wasn't care. It was relocation. Spring. Move-in target. Spring. They needed me out of the house so they could sell it or rent it and clear the debt they'd hung on it. I was the relocation. I drove home and I did not cry and I did not call my daughter. I poured myself a glass of water, sat down at the kitchen table, and started a third column. I called my son back and read it to him flat. The transfer, the lien, the forged signature through the old POA, the deposit on a memory care studio with my name and a spring date. He was quiet for a long time, and when he spoke, his voice had gone thick. So I wasn't crazy. You were never the crazy one, I said. What did you actually hear him say in that hallway? He breathed in. He was talking to somebody about timing. He said, once she's settled at Cedar Hollow we listed in the spring, the equity covers the cabinet shop and then some. I told myself he meant some other house. I didn't want it to be yours. I didn't want it to be Sis. He stopped. Who plans that, about their own mother? Your sister, I said, married a man who plans, and she let him, because the alternative was admitting they're broke. People will do almost anything to keep from saying out loud that they're broke. I matched the date my son was at the house against the date that lien was recorded. He'd overheard them 3 weeks before the deed of trust hit the records. They'd been arranging my eviction before the ink was even dry on the loan they forged. The Sunday dinner where they asked me so sweetly to simplify wasn't a request. It was a ribbon on a box they'd already shipped. I thanked my son. I told him to say nothing, to act normal, to trust me 1 week more. Then I went back to the table and I built. For the next 3 days I did what 40 years made me good at. I quantified. Not the feelings, the dollars. What did they actually want to cost me? My house, free and clear, was worth a little over $400,000. The only asset I have. The only thing standing between me and a studio I never chose. They'd already encumbered it with a line of credit running into 6 figures, and the payment was eating my savings at $1,900 a month, which over a few years would hollow out everything I'd put away. If I signed their pretty trust deed, I'd be gift transferring my home into their reach and triggering the very Medicaid look-back they claimed to be protecting me from, making me less safe, not more, locking me out of help for 5 years if I ever did need care. The thing they sold as a shield was the sword. I priced it all in clean rows. The equity at risk, the savings already siphoned, the cost of the care I'd be disqualified from. A grand total at the bottom, in bold, because a number in bold ends an argument that a tear never will. They wanted to call it love. What they'd built was a withdrawal slip with my name forged at the bottom. My daughter called me Thursday night, alone. No husband murmuring in the background, I could tell. Her voice came out small, the voice she used at 9 after her dad's first bad spell, standing in my doorway pretending she wasn't scared. Mom, I'm so tired, she said. We're so far behind. The shop's underwater, the leases, the club, I can't. Every month it's a knife fight and I can't tell anybody. She started to cry, and God help me, For one breath, I forgot the lien and the forgery and the deposit, and she was just my girl drowning in the dark, and everything in me lurched to fix it. Then we fix it honestly, I said. You sell the boat. You drop the club. You let me sit with the two of you and build a real plan. I've done this for strangers 100 times. Let me do it for you. No, she said fast. No, people would see. The shop folding, it'd ruin him. She gathered herself, and her voice slid into something smoother, something she'd clearly rehearsed. There's an easier way, Mom. You let us help you simplify. You move somewhere safe. The house gets handled, and everything just settles. You worked your whole life. Let us carry it now. Let us carry it. As if 11 years of forged quiet withdrawals were carrying, as if the nights I worked to keep her fed were a tab she was finally collecting. Come to dinner Sunday, she said. Everybody together. We'll get it all settled. Everybody together, I agreed. I'll bring something. I hung up and looked at the folder. She wanted everybody at the table. So did I. We just didn't want it for the same reason. I want you to picture what they thought they were dealing with because they never bothered to look. A tired old widow with a calculator and too much house. That same week, I'd spent 4 days untangling a title mess on a 40-unit deal that 2 attorneys had given up on. Found a defect in the chain, going back to 1991, that would have blown the whole closing, fixed it, saved a developer and 40 families their homes. The escrow officer half my age called me a legend. I drove home from that, thinking about the word simplify. The woman they wanted to file away in a studio had just held a multi-million-dollar closing together with a magnifying glass and 40 years of stubbornness. The skill they dismissed as a hobby was the exact skill about to take their dinner apart. Saturday night, I assembled it like the closing binder it was. 3 sections in my husband's Navy folder. First, their money. Proof they could carry their own lives if they touched a single luxury. Second, the cost to me. The bolded total of what their protection would actually take. Third, the truth, the bank transfer draining my savings, the recorded deed of trust with my forged signature, the 11-year-old POA they'd exercised like a stolen key, and a printout of a memory care deposit with my name and the word spring. I clipped them in order. I set the folder by the door and laid my reading glasses on top of it, and I slept better than I had in a week. Sunday. The fountain, the wreath still up, candles this time, a standing roast, and my daughter in the good earrings, my son-in-law's mother back in her chair like a season ticket holder. And they didn't expect this. My son, who'd called and asked if he could come, who I'd told yes and nothing more. My daughter's face did something when he walked in. My son-in-law refilled water that didn't need it and couldn't look at me. A man can't look straight at the mother-in-law he forged. I set the Navy folder by my plate. Closed. You can put that in the den, Mom, my daughter said too quickly. No work tonight. Just family. I'll keep it close, I said. You never know when you'll want to check a number. My son-in-law's mother lifted her glass. To family, taking care of family. They drank. I didn't. My little Wren was asleep down the hall on a monitor, innocent of every dollar being moved in her name's direction. My daughter couldn't make it to dessert. So, she said, setting down her fork, a thin smile pulling tight. You've had your week. We need to know you're with us, Mom. The trust paperwork's ready. We just need a yes. I've reviewed everything, I said, carefully. Level. Something in my tone made her sit up. She'd expected tears or guilt or a grateful old woman folding. She got a quiet voice and a closed folder, and it unsettled her, so she reached for the weapon that had worked on me my whole life. You know, she said, loud enough for the table. A real mother wouldn't make her own family beg her to let them keep her safe. A real grandmother would think about Wren's future instead of clinging to a house. The room went still. My son-in-law's mother nodded, satisfied. My son's jaw set. They thought she'd landed the blow. I let the sentence sit in the candlelight as ugly as it was. Then I reached up, unhurried, and put on my reading glasses. The whole table watched me do it and read it as stalling. An old woman fussing, working up her nerve. My daughter actually smiled, sure she'd won. In 40 years, nobody who ever sat across a table from me, once those glasses went on, came out of the meeting, holding what they'd walked in with. You're right, I said, settling them on my nose. Let's leave feelings out of it. My hand moved to the folder. Let's talk facts. I slid the navy folder to the center, onto the good linen between the roast and the candles. You've all been very patient with the slow old woman, I said. Let me return the courtesy. I did exactly what you asked. I reviewed everything. Mom, my son-in-law started. You wanted an answer. You'll get a complete one. With sources. I unclipped the band. Section 1. Your finances. Your numbers, not mine. I turned the page so it faced them and read it plainly. The income, the truck, the boat, the lake place, the preschool. You're not broke. You're overextended. Drop the boat and the membership, and you carry your own lives with room to spare. You don't have a protect mom problem. You have a base boat problem. My son made a noise into his napkin. My son-in-law's color climbed. You don't understand our expenses, he said. I understand them perfectly. I've had your numbers since the last refinance. I turned the next page. Section 2. The cost of what you keep calling protection. I read it like a closing statement, no drama, just rows. My house, the only thing I own. Their pretty trust transfer triggering the exact 5-year penalty they pretended to be saving me from. The total at the bottom, in bold. You're not protecting me from losing everything. You've engineered it. Signing your trust would lock me out of help and hand you my equity in one move. That's not a shield, sweetheart. That's the bill. You're twisting it, my daughter said. We did this for you. I haven't said one untrue thing, I said. And I haven't reached Section 3. I turned the page, and the room got very, very quiet. Section 3 has 3 parts. I'll take them in order. I laid down the first. Every month for the last 11 months, $1,900 has left my savings account, an account that is mine, and mine alone. I didn't authorize it. I looked at my daughter. I had to ask myself who could move my money. There's exactly one person on earth with that key. Her face drained. I laid down the second page. This is a deed of trust. A lien. Recorded against my house 9 weeks ago, securing a line of credit I never applied for. I let it sit in the light. The signature on it is mine, almost, signed by and through her attorney-in-fact, under a durable power of attorney I executed 11 years ago in a hospital hallway to protect this family while your father was dying. My voice didn't rise. I lowered it. You used your dying father's emergency paperwork to mortgage my house behind my back. My son-in-law's mother put her napkin to her mouth. You forged my name, my daughter whispered. I didn't. It was legal. The POA makes it. It makes it actionable, I said. Not honest. There's a word for borrowing against someone's home in their name without their knowledge, and it isn't trust. I laid down the third page. And this is the part my son couldn't quite say out loud. A deposit. Cedar Hollow Senior Living, Memory Care, my name, move-in target, spring. I looked up over my glasses. The relocation is me. You drained my savings to service a loan you forged against my house, and you put a deposit on a studio to move me out so you could sell it in the spring and clear the debt. The dinner 3 weeks ago wasn't asking my permission. It was asking me to sign a fresh deed so all of it would look like my idea. The table broke. My son-in-law put his face in his hands. My daughter shot up out of her chair. We were going to talk to you about all of it eventually. You were going to inform me, I said. My son heard your husband on the phone 3 weeks before that lien was even recorded. Listing in the spring. The equity covers the shop. My house, in his mouth, like it was already his to sell. My son nodded once, jaw tight. I heard it, he said quietly. I'm sorry, Mom. I heard it. You've humiliated us, my daughter said, breathing hard, with paper, in front of his mother. You can afford to keep your own life, I said, calm as still water. You just couldn't afford the truth. Her hand came down and caught the stem of her wineglass, and it went over, red spreading across the white linen, slow and final, like something spilled that doesn't come back. Nobody moved. She was crying now, but they weren't sorry tears. They were the furious kind. The tears of somebody caught, not somebody ashamed. Here's my answer, I said, and I took off my reading glasses and folded them on the table beside the stain. The complete one, with sources. I looked at each of them. My daughter, her husband, his mother, my son who'd had the spine to make a 2-hour drive and tell the truth. I will not sign your trust. I will not transfer my house. Monday morning, I revoke that power of attorney in writing, recorded, so it can never be used again. Monday afternoon, my attorney files to challenge that lien as fraudulently executed, and the bank's fraud department hears from me the same day. The $1,900 a month stops, and you will repay every dollar of it on a written schedule starting next month, or I let the district attorney decide what to call what you did. My daughter's head came up. Mom, if the lien gets challenged, the bank calls the loan, the shop's gone, we could lose everything. Then you'll sell the boat, I said gently, and the club membership, and you'll live in a life you can actually pay for. People do it every single day. I did it once, with 2 kids and a dying husband, and I never forged a soul's name to manage it. I stood and picked up the folder. You told me a real grandmother thinks about Ren's future. I looked at my daughter, steady. I'm making sure she grows up watching what happens to people who treat the women who love them like a signature line. That's the inheritance I'd rather leave her. I tucked my glasses in my pocket. I'll always be her grandmother, I said. I will never be a name you forge. And I walked out, past the boat and the leased truck, through the fake fountain, back to my own paid-for, free and clear life. The lien came undone, just like I said it would. Fraudulent execution of a forged instrument doesn't survive a title officer who knows exactly which clerk to call. The bank, terrified of its own liability, unwound the line of credit and came after my son-in-law's business directly for what it had advanced. The cabinet shop folded by midsummer. The boat went first. Then the truck downshifted to something with a back seat and a payment they could see. Then the club membership, then the lake share. The Cedar Hollow deposit got refunded to the card that paid it, and I find I don't lose sleep over where that card's balance went. My son-in-law's mother stopped calling. I notice I don't mind. The harder thing happens slowly. For the first time in his marriage, my son-in-law sat down with the books his wife had always run alone, and my daughter finally had to say the words out loud that she'd been forging her way around for a year. We are broke, and I lied to my mother to hide it. They're in counseling. I hope it helps them. I am not paying for it. My son and I talk every Sunday now. Funny how that goes. The child I'd let his sister treat like furniture turned out to be the one who drove 2 hours to stand at my table and say, I heard it. My daughter came by alone in May. Stewed on my porch a long while before she knocked. She didn't fully apologize, she's not there yet. And I've stopped waiting for grown children to arrive on a schedule. But she said one true thing. I was so scared of him finding out we were failing that I did something I can't take back. I told her that fear explains a great deal and excuses almost none of it. I have my little Ren on Saturdays now, my choice, my joy. We bake the cheap boxed cookies, the good kind, and I let her crack the eggs and make a mess, and I do it because I adore her, not because anyone invoiced me for the privilege. The wine stain never came out of the linen. My son tells me they finally threw the tablecloth away. Some marks you can't scrub out. You just stop setting the table over them. So here's what I know after 67 years and one very expensive dinner. I spent 40 years making sure the right name was on the right deed, and I'll be damned if I was going to get my own wrong. Love is a thing you give, freely, with both hands. It is not a thing you record against your mother's house in the middle of the night. If anybody has ever handed you a pen and called it love, this is your permission to read every line first, and to keep the house.